Bonjour. Today I'm talking with Quinton Quartel. We talked about complex versus complicated and leadership bullshit.
I'm Yves from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it.
Hello everyone, and hello with me I have Quinton. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Eve.
Well, thank you for being here. And being here, in my case, this means Ghent, and in your case, I think that's no, I forgot. It's not Boston. It's
Detroit.
Detroit. Yeah, sorry. There was some technical problems, and now I'm completely whacked off. But more important, I think, for me, it's almost 10 minutes before 6 in the evening. What's the time on your side?
It is 1:45 or 1300.
Exactly. So a lot of time zone differences, and I think it's also quarter to one on a Friday afternoon, I guess, right?
Yep, yep.
And so for me, I'm calling from the future because it's Friday evening already. So that's a little bit the difference where we are. Now, Quinton, before we jump into the questions, could you give a small introduction of yourself? What do you want people to know about you?
I want to change the world. I want to change the world of business to make business places for human growth whilst helping organizations be successful. And I think there's a win-win in there. So that's what I want. My background is I'm a software developer. My my career has gone through a very winding path: development manager, consultant, coach, technical coach, business coach, product manager. So I wear lots of hats and got to see lots of things.
Got to see lots of things. I really like that
Yeah.
as well. That's a nice way of looking at the world, I would say. Um, well, yeah. Let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in the way you are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I had to think about that one. Um, my parents were immigrants. I'm an immigrant. And one study found that immigrants are responsible for around 36% of innovation in the United States, despite
Wow.
making up only 16% of the inventor workforce. So there's lots of data out there about the effect of immigrants. And I don't know many people know. Actually, most people would know that I'm an immigrant because my accent is not American.
And yeah, and this is actually something I indeed wish much more people would know, in the sense that, well, without going too much into the politics, let's say that most people in the United States don't realize that effect of the immigrants, I would say.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, when you
That's
look at some of the big companies, I mean, Google, one of the founders there is immigrant. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I think there's lots of examples of
Oh,
people who
yes.
are, and indeed, like you say, the percentage, the numbers speak for itself. That
Hmm.
really is very clear. But somehow, people always have a strange idea on some of these things, and it's usually more because they don't know any of them, these people themselves, and they're afraid, and that yeah, things that people don't know they're afraid of. Um, but that doesn't mean it's always negative, just like your example here. Um, and could you tell me some more about how that influenced you?
Well, I wonder if it contributes to cognitive diversity in having lived in different places in the world. you you learn to recognize um, different kind of mindsets and ways of thinking. So each time I've moved twice now. Um, it kind of expands you a little further. That's a theory. So
Hmm.
maybe it's helped me be more innovative, more empathy for others. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that if you're moving to different parts. If I only well I most of my life I've been living in Belgium. I lived like for a year in France, and a couple of months in the UK, and even then in the UK I was traveling back and forth. But just these experiences make me think much more different about the world. Officially in Europe, it's very easy to travel from one country to another, and still we had lots of troubles on, yeah, mostly bureaucratic stuff.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, you also learn about different countries. So yeah, different countries and different cultures. So I can
Yeah.
definitely see that how that can influence you. Let's move to that second question. If you had not been, if yeah, if you had not been working into IT, what would have become of you?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I get this strange feeling that there's parallel realities and that there's two other versions of me in other universes. And one's a school teacher and one is a naval officer. So and I
Wow,
don't
so
know
there's
why I
there's
feel
multiple
that.
versions of that.
Yes, I
Wow.
think so. I think there's two other versions of me. And I like it anytime I see a movie or read a book to do with the Navy, I'm like, it feels like I'm meant to be there or I should be there, which is kind of weird because it's got
Mhm.
nothing to do. I've never been in the military at all. But yeah, that's and same with school teaching. I've got two family members that are school teachers, and I I really kind of feel the draw to that I could have seen myself also doing that, teaching younger children.
Mm. And was there at some point in your life that triggered these things? Because you say, okay, there is family members that are doing this. Were there other
Yeah.
things that give you that impression or give you that desire to do this?
Um, so I have one daughter, and she went to well, she went to a Steiner school for a
Mm.
while, and I remember taking her there and feeling very much at home there. I'm like, I could be here all day, and I would really enjoy being
Mm.
around these children. Um, yeah, and that I think that was my first realization of like, yeah, I could wouldn't mind being a teacher of young children.
So that was after you already had children yourself. That really was while walking around in the school. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, if I hadn't have had a daughter, I don't know if I would have ever had that draw or that feeling to that. Whereas the sailor thing seems to be I don't know, like every time I see a movie or read a book, it's like I'm there somehow. Yeah.
hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine a lot of us doing that in some kind of books. But yeah, there is books or movies that we see that we're saying like, yeah, I see myself.
Hmm.
But this feels a little bit. This is not just a child watching a movie and thinking, "Oh, I'm the pirate" and something like that. This is really. It feels
Yeah.
much bigger. What is that? And
Oh.
have you ever done some sailing?
No, not really. Like not on a big boat. Um, I don't know. Maybe it was a past life. I think I had a past life as a German submariner, and I died there, which is probably why I got a
Mm.
fear of drowning now. I don't know why I have that feeling, but yeah, yeah. So particularly like World War II movies, I'm like, wow, yeah, and definitely submarines. for some reason. So I also think that I read a book. What was it? It was to do with the that we're living in a simulation. I don't know if you're familiar with that theory,
Mhm.
that our reality is a simulation. So yeah, that's why I'm wondering, like, hey, maybe if that's true, like maybe there is another version of me somewhere in the simulation that is an officer on a submarine somewhere.
Hmm. Or
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, okay. So that's in even in a different kind of dimension, in a
Mm,
way.
yeah.
So that's indeed something. Yeah.
Yeah, you got me sharing something I've never shared before, but yeah, you asked an interesting question.
Yeah, but this
Yeah,
this is this is why I like these kind of questions, because it think makes us think in different kind of directions
yeah,
about
yeah.
ourselves indeed. Let's move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, and why is that a good thing for you?
My biggest challenge is making a better world. Like I said in the beginning, that's kind of what's driving me behind everything I do is this continuous improvement, like of the world. I think, yeah, like how do we make a better world? And that's a big challenge. But that's what's driving me. And I think what I've honed in on is, well, you can change what's immediately in front of you. Like you always start there. And my realization of, you're going to spend most of your adult life working. So why don't we start with that? Why don't we make workplaces places where adults come to continue growing and learn skills in the workplace that they can take to their home and to their community and to their society. So
Hmm.
things like, hey, how do I become a better listener? How can I resolve conflict? How can I communicate better? Those skills are going to help your business dramatically. But look what happens once you've got those and you can come home and use them with your family and your friends and your community. Like, particularly in the US, where we're so polarized politically, and like the path to healing the beginning of that path is listening, right? So there's a skill I think we're hugely lacking: listening, empathy, and communication. Um, I think we need to get a lot better at everywhere in the world, here in the US especially, and why not learn that in our workplaces?
Yeah, I really like that. It's um, like you say, most of our time we spend at work. So a lot of I see sometimes people focusing, how can I improve my life in a way to yeah, then focus on better hobbies or whatever. But that's just
Mhm.
a small part, and we spend at least 8 hours at our job. Well, the people who are working full time,
Yeah.
which is a huge part of our day.
Mhm.
And that is sad if that's in a bad environment in a way. So
Right.
that's
Yeah, and you think of, you read these cartoons like Dilbert and the Office Space, and they're funny and they're sad at the same time. That because we laugh because it's they turn it into humor, but it's
but they
real.
recognize
It's
exactly.
real, and we're spending most of our adult life in toxic environments. That's just not healthy, right? And you're going to come home spending most of your time in this toxic environment, and then what kind of quality are you going to give to your family and to your community? Like, you got to come home and then decompress and heal. Why not go to work and heal and come home empowered and peaceful and calm and make your home a beautiful place and then build your community.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, indeed. Decompressing. The Dilbert one. That's the question where the thing I wanted to relate to. I once heard a person, a friend of mine, colleague, coach, say to me that he just walks around, looks at the Dilberts that, or that was an old story, but he walks or looks around at the Dilberts that are hanging on the walls, and that basically tells him what to do because these are the people put them up for a reason. There's tons of Dilberts, and they put up these signs because they tell something that they're afraid to sell in a different kind of way. And I found that
Yeah.
so powerful, and I've tried and used it since. There's less Dilberts on the floors these days, but it's definitely the memes that people are sharing. These are the
Mm.
things that actually people feel.
Yeah.
It's the things to help out and to react to that. So that's yeah. Thanks for bringing
Mm.
that up because it's yeah.
Yeah. Work doesn't need to suck, but why do we make it suck? You know, right?
Yeah, exactly. And why can't we make it
Yeah.
all better again? So
Yeah,
it's
exactly. And that's my passion. But it's right. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Like change is always hard, right? So, the way that we work, um, the fact that it's, when you read a Dilbert comic, right, that was created from an office space here in the US, but you can totally relate because you go to a toxic office in Belgium, in Denmark, in the UK. It's the same toxicity everywhere. Like, why
exactly.
is it like that? And it doesn't have to be like that, I don't think. But we need to acknowledge that and work on that.
Yeah, I recognize that. It's yeah the like you say, it's the same toxic. The, yeah, the toxic
The same
ways that are
patterns,
yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
That's the word I was looking
The
for. Yeah,
pattern.
indeed.
Yeah.
The pattern is really the
Hmm.
same. And it doesn't really matter in what country. And of course, there are some countries and some, let's say, other cultures that make things worse. But it's not. It's somehow in our now working culture. I don't know. It's somehow somehow
Yeah.
very similar there.
Hmm.
So that is indeed if we can make that environment a lot better, that that can be so much better for everybody, and not just
Yeah,
for
yeah.
work, indeed for our
Hmm.
family as well. It wouldn't be the first person that is really frustrated at work and takes it out on their family.
Hmm.
And I'm not just talking physically, but just also emotionally. The fact that you're stressed out and you're asking your partner like, okay, leave me alone. I need to decompress. It's
Hmm.
it's very sad.
Yeah.
We should. Yeah, that's really is nice. And like you said, this is your biggest challenge. Why is that a good thing for you? That challenge.
Well, it gives me a purpose to work towards, something that's bigger than me. It's going to never end, and uh, it gives me a reason to do the things I do. It's like a higher calling almost. So a lot of people um, will do things for a larger purpose or a big reason, and that's the one that I've landed on because it relates to me. So I saw a lot of um, so being a developer and then discovering, well, agile, and seeing the impact how the agile made on my team. Like we picked up extreme programming, and it made me a better person, and it made me enjoy my work. And so I realized that, hey, the things that we do at work can change us as people and can make work better. So that was, surprising to me looking back in hindsight. And then wanting the rest of the world to feel that, to say, hey, I know what it feels like to not suck at work. Right? So I had this magic period, almost 8 years, like on this team where I loved going to work and everything was fantastic. And then changed jobs. I became a consultant, contractor, and you'd go out and they say, hey, you seem to understand this agile thing, can you help us? I'm like, yeah, here, we're going to do these things. And they say, we don't want to do those things. And I'm like, but those things make things are going to make things really good. And they're like, we want to do these things but not those things, and so this dichotomy of like knowing that that work can be so good, but like why why aren't people willing to try that? And why are they stuck in the ways that they are, which it takes you down that path of change and status quo and ego and fear and control, and power games. You get into the Dilbert world, and that's why. So uh I realized, hey, there's no point. Well, there's little point trying to say, hey, do these agile things if you're in this toxic environment. So I had to go to the root cause of, all right, how do we how do we solve the problem which stops you from even, like, you say you want agile, but you're never going to get there in the toxic space you're in. You're never going to get there. It ain't going to happen. So how do I work on that problem, um, on that root problem? And that changed the books that I started reading, a lot of which I see on your bookshelf there. Um, yeah, and it really changed the tools and practices that I started playing with, and it opened my eyes to a whole new world of things beyond agile. Like, yeah, how do we listen? How do we communicate? How do we resolve conflict? And it came down to very human skills, and which the agile manifesto is. It's all about people and interactions. And you're like, yeah, well, we got to solve that, right? We need to solve this people interactions thing, because without it, all the other stuff. Mm,
Well, there might be things going better, but there is a limit to
mhm.
that, right?
Right. Yeah. You might make some small wins, but you're not gonna achieve. Well, I just know how good it can be when you get it all right, or most of it more right. It starts to really make life and your work and business a lot better, and like businesses start winning more often. So businesses don't care about the soft stuff. They care about, we want to win, make money, right? And I'm like, I get it, right? We need to make money. So I need to talk about, hey, I can help you make more money by doing these things, and we've got a show, right? So I see a book on your shelf there about psychological safety. So who would have ever thought, um, hey, by introducing psychological safety into your organization, you can make X more percent profit, right? So now managers are interested. Oh, sure, we can do that. We should do psychological safety, not for the fact that you should actually do it because it makes people better people and you should be doing it anyway. No, we want to do it to make more money, but that's that's the world of business. And so now I've got to find a way to say, hey, do these things because you're going to be more effective and more efficient, and more profitable, and we've got to package it up like that. But really, my driving force is, we're going to make a better world. And I do have to acknowledge that people need jobs, and those jobs are there because the companies they're hiring need to make a profit. So, and I think there is a win-win in there. So, like I gave the example of psychological safety, studies have shown just introducing that practice will increase your productivity and efficiency, and solve a lot of problems, like in hospitals, people dying, right? So just introducing psychological safety, less people dying in hospitals. So it's incredible that there's these soft skills, and I'm using air quotes here, because the soft stuff is almost, it's almost the hard stuff, because it's easier to do the bean counting stuff, but trying to implement um, soft stuff, like how do we get people to listen better, communicate better.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. Well, you say like soft. It's hard. It's not soft, but somehow
Right.
we call it soft. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's also not valued because it sounds
Yes.
soft and whatever. But
Yeah.
it brings in hard dollar, hard cash.
Yes.
That's the thing. And on top, it makes life better. So,
Right.
but somehow, if there is an idea with some people that if life is too easy at work, it doesn't bring any value. Duh.
Hmm.
There is hard evidence that it brings money. Yeah, somehow people think that if we're tough enough or whatever, that things are better. Well, there is data that shows that it's the opposite around.
Hmm.
Somehow hard because we seem also to live in a world that looks less at science these days for research and for all kind of data.
Hmm.
That is sad as well. At the same time, it's interesting because just like me, I hear you say like I've seen it work better. So you've
Hmm.
been in other companies where things are better. Um, and that probably drives goes to that next question, but what makes it for you that yeah, that you want to help that with companies, and why not just join a company where things are better? So what is really
Yeah.
that drive and that passion to help out these companies where things are not going great?
Um, yeah, and I do that sometimes. I go and just join companies where things are better. So I tend to go through cycles of like, hey, I'm here, and things are great. Um, to hey, how do we help other people as well? And there's another factor to that, which I call the Camelot effect, of like you can work somewhere and it's all wonderful and great. So the story of Camelot is, there was this like Nirvana place, and then the whole thing ends up falling apart. Um, so that's what I call the Camelot effect, and so it falls apart when it's always been when some new executive comes in and goes, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do things this way, which is some baggage that they brought with them from some previous place that worked for them, so they believe that this is the way it works, and they bring that in, and then all of the magic of Camelot is all gone because Lancelot has now shown up, and so there I don't think there is, well, for me there has never been a consistent Nirvana job. Like, it's been, you get there for a while and then the whole thing falls apart, which gets me back to treating that root cause of like, why are there so many toxic leaders around there that are just willing to, they just come in and with these giant egos and control, um power, looking for power and control, and they destroy something without even looking at it, of saying, hey, is this working, or how can I make incremental changes to make it better, like assess what's working or not. But no, they come in and go, this is what this is the way it should be. um, there's a book called Leadership BS. um, John Cutler mentioned it some something I was on, maybe it was one of his podcasts. And yeah, I read that book because there's so many books out there on like leadership this, leadership that. And so the guy says, yeah, like all of those books are kind of almost theoretical. It's like, leaders should do this, they should be kind and nice, and yeah, that's all these books. And then in his Leadership BS book, he's like, yeah, you read that, but that's not the actual reality of it. And in the actual reality of it, there's you're probably more likely to do well if you've got uh, an outsized ego. Um, and he goes through facts and numbers and go, this is the actual reality of what leadership looks like. Yeah.
That's a book from Jeffrey Pfeiffer, if I'm correct, right?
Mm,
A yellow book, I
Yellow
think.
Book, that's the one. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I will
very
mention it in the
interesting book.
show notes. It's one I do recognize. I haven't read
Yeah,
it myself. Have to be honest about that, but
yeah.
it's one that's been very intriguing. So it's the first time that I hear somebody who actually read it. So I'm glad to
Okay.
hear that it's actually a good book. But it's an intriguing title to look because it's like indeed. I was a little bit worried, and that's why I haven't read it so far. That this would contain again some bullshit as well, so that's why I was a little bit.
No, yes,
Yeah.
no. He goes. It's not. He talks about the reality of leadership.
Mm,
So it's a little. I found it somewhat depressing because here's me wanting to change the world, and then that book identifies, hey, this is the actual hurdle that's in front of you, Quinton.
mm,
Right? This is how leadership actually works, right?
right.
Yeah, and so it's. Uh, I mean, it's good to know. You can identify the enemy, but uh,
But yeah, at the same time, it's yeah. Then
it's a
you
little
can't walk
depressing.
away from. Yeah, it's sometimes
Yeah,
depressing. Some of these
yeah,
things. Okay.
yeah.
And still at the same time you keep doing this in a sense that you keep going there like you said because the maybe the nirvana isn't that nirvana all the time as well or doesn't become the nirvana anymore.
Right.
So yeah, and of course especially if you're in a nirvana company, yeah, it might be good to go to the reality for some other people, especially if you want to change the world and help other people.
Hmm.
Um, but that I can imagine that it can also drain a lot of energy. So yeah, is
Uh,
that for you? Is that something that
um,
takes a lot of your energy?
no, because like all the time I'm doing what I love. It's
Mm,
inspiring, but it does drain you uh when you're somewhere and you know that you've reached the limit of your ability um, to influence. And
mm,
then I'll get clear signals that I'm at that place, and that the odds are stacked against me so so hugely that it's time to
to
go
leave.
on. Yeah. Woody Zoll, oddly enough, I was just in a workshop with him this morning. He says, I've stopped trying to change teams and companies, and he goes, I just try and change a person now. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
one person at a time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens when I am somewhere and I feel that, hey, that my ability to influence here is gone, but to know that at least you've left some seeds behind. You have touched some people, and I think that's all we can do. We can try to build Camelot, and sometimes we succeed and it stays Camelot for a while and it goes away. But the more we do that, the more people are touched. And I'm hoping that by touching enough people that we can get closer to the tipping point, and that there's more organizations that choose to be non-toxic consciously, because they go, hey, yeah, we can do better, and they will choose to hire people, um, the right people, to they're conscious of the culture that they're building and the company that they're building, and do continuous weeding. Like if you're growing a garden, that's what you do. You tend the garden, which includes hey, this weeding, pruning, and that's how a garden stays beautiful. But it takes conscious work and effort.
That's it. It's the yeah, and the gardening is really taking weed out. It's not pulling the correct the nice flowers. You can't push them to grow faster, but you can
No.
only create the environment in which they can grow, and we can
Yeah.
give them water. We give them everything they need. We give them space
Hmm.
to do that,
Yeah.
and we pull the weeds that are surrounding there, and then we
Hmm.
have to give them time basically, and that's also a little bit
Exactly.
with companies.
Yeah.
And somehow it feels that some companies The weeding, they might be interested in it, but the time is a
Yes.
hard part. I
Yeah, there
mean,
you go. Yeah.
they want to push things, and things needs to go faster, and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
take the time they take.
Hmm.
You talked earlier about the Steiner school. I think I've yeah, my children didn't go to Steiner school, but I know a little bit about the philosophy. I have the feeling that's a school that gives much more time to children to learn at their own speed than many schools. Many schools is like, okay, this is what you need to learn, and by
Mm.
this week you need to do this and that and that. And I have the feeling that some of the more alternative schools look more at, okay, what is the speed of the children? Is that correct for
Hmm.
Steiner as well, or not?
Yes, yeah, it is, and I'm not trying to sell Steiner education to
Mm-hmm.
anyone, but that was where I first felt the draw. But yeah, at my daughter wasn't there that long. It was kind of preschool, but I learned a bit about the philosophy, and they only start reading um, or well, by age 7, so they don't give them anything. Um, like traditional education until 7. Before that, it's music, and they'll focus on music and art up until 7. After 7, and then they start doing reading, math, and all the rest of it. So yeah, very much
And
based
music,
on.
when you say art and music, it's
Mhm.
based on doing stuff much more than theory, I think, right?
Oh yes, yeah, yep,
So even there with music, they might not know any notes, but they might be
no,
able to play music
yes,
and collaborate with other people and creating a song together, or
yeah,
whatever.
yep. They're given musical instruments, like very simple ones to start with. Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah, and
they
again, you
they
start from
get
the practice, and yeah.
yeah. And they teach them how to draw and paint and color, and yeah, so they're learning skills. I think Steiner's theory was that there's certain evolutionary phases of growth within the child, and that the 7 is the right age to start learning more intellectual things. But by
Hmm.
having this base of music and art, um, is a good base for it. So I don't know if that's true or not. Like I never, my daughter didn't stay in Steiner school, so I don't know how that would have gone. But I think it's an interesting philosophy anyway.
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, and that's a little bit why I brought it up, because there's links and different kind of things. Okay,
yeah.
we've been talking for this for a long time. I want to move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement? At least the big the and before I want to jump into that, what I've noticed is when I ask this question, this is basically your moment to brag and to be really
Yeah.
proud.
All
Is
right.
that easy for you
Mhm.
to do this?
It's it's. I wish it was easier. Yeah, I think I'm a little too humble. Um, so I think my biggest achievement so far is fluid adaptive scaling technology. Is I came up with a new way of working. Um, so one day I was at a conference. It was 2014. I was in New Orleans, and day 3 of that conference was an open space event. I'd been a speaker at the conference, which you can probably work out. I'm quite the introvert, so to do speakerish things takes a lot of energy from me, and I need to kind of recharge. So
Mm-hmm.
day 3, I'm like, I'm just going to recharge today. I'm going to sit in this open space. I was used to open space, but I'm going to be maybe not even a butterfly. I'm not going to go out presenting. I need to recharge today. So day 3 is an open space. I'm sitting and I'm watching this open space event unfold. And I think it was because I was in that introvert space and being more observant than participatory that I really saw open space. And it was the largest one I'd been to. We'd just finished populating the marketplace, and I'm hoping people that listen understand open space. But
I will
so we just,
definitely link in the show notes
yeah,
to
as
the
what,
yeah.
yeah, open space technology is. Um, we just finished populating the marketplace, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. Like 600 people have just self-organized a one-day conference in 20 minutes. 600 people
Mm.
have just self-organized something in 20 minutes. That is truly, truly amazing. This thing is so powerful. And I'm at an agile conference, and the things that we were talking about back then was like agile at scale. And I'm like, and this thing, wow, it really scales because I'd been to open space before. This was the largest one. And it really feels it's so compatible with the agile values. And I use two words in the same sentence. I never thought I would, like agile and agile at scale. I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, why don't we use open space to solve agile at scale? So I was like struck with this idea, which I couldn't shake. 2 years later, I got to put the idea into practice. So I was working at an organization called Primera in Seattle, and I was faced with a scaling challenge, and it was quite a fairly simple scaling challenge. Is that we had one large team. So the our team was a new division within the organization, and we were the digital arm of the organization. So we're going to create these digital products. We had one product, and the roadmap had multiple products, and so we were hiring people on to build out our division and work on multiple products. But in the meantime, we've got one product and we've got one team. So everyone that was coming in was joining the same team. So with extreme programming, you can hold larger size teams. I think we were like 16, 18 people, and we're ready to start our next product. So by this point, the first product is somewhat legacy. The next product is greenfield. It's very sexy. And if you know software developers, to say, hey, do you want to work on a legacy product on the greenfield? Most of them want to work on the greenfield. New
Yeah.
technology, right? It's sexy. It's new technology, and you get that new. You get to put that new technology on your resume, right? It actually makes you worth more in the marketplace, makes your job more interesting. So there was a dilemma of by this point I think I filled in as Scrum Master, um, and the dilemma was, well, if we've now got two products and one large team, what's the solution? Right? There's a standard Scrum answer to that is like, well, you split the team. So why is that a dilemma? Because I thought, well, who gets to go on which team? Because I felt like the people that have been at the company the longest were the ones that most deserve to go on the new product, right?
Mhm.
But the people that have been at the company the longest were also the ones that knew most about the legacy product, right? So if they'd all moved over, then we've lost all of the domain knowledge, and then so I'm like, well, how do we make that fair? And who am I to play grand chess master of like, let's put this pawn here and that pawn there, of choosing who goes on which team? So I pulled everyone together. I said, hey, I had this crazy idea a couple of years ago. And what if we just stay together as one team, and we'll work on both products, and we'll create this marketplace of work. Like, these are the things that need to happen. And the rule is do the right thing. So as long as everything gets done, I don't care who works on what, but
Mm.
do the right thing. And so what the right thing might be is, hey, this thing needs to happen in the legacy product. I'm the one person that knows most about that. I should go work over there, right? So I would expect you to do the right thing. Another part of doing the right thing is, while I'm over here working on it, I should really work with someone else to share the knowledge with them. That's the right thing to do,
Mm.
so that I don't become um, bottleneck, or a single point of failure for that piece of knowledge. So I should pair program or mob program around that. That's the right thing to do. And so, we talked about what the right thing to do is, and we said, do we want to give this a go? And if we do, we'll try it for a couple months and assess it. If it doesn't work, we can always go back to the standard Scrum pattern. Easy peasy. So we had a safe to fail experiment. And with that, we got a unanimous yes. And well, it ran for 2 years, and then Camelot fell apart. But but we did it for 2 years. But the outcome of that was what I now call fluid adaptive scaling technology. So we used open space as a way, as an agile method, or which is what I now just say. It's a way for people to self-organize around work. And what I love about it, and why I continue to share it, is because it feeds what I'm trying to do in the world. Is that I think it also makes the world of work a better place, and it makes the world a better place. Yeah, because it solves business problems of um, static teaming. Is a challenge. It brings its own problems. The biggest one that people always talk about is dependencies and dependency management. So fast solves that one really well. But it creates a platform. So why I love it is it creates a platform where the better you get at communicating and listening and resolving conflict, the better fast works. Um, so it kind of feeds my soul in that way. So I can help businesses be better, more effective at what they're doing, solving real business problems, but also subtly, I'm making a better world. That's the way I see it. That's my
Yeah,
biggest achievement so far.
yeah. It reminds me in a way with a French company that it's a hard to pronounce name, but it's UT7 or something like that it's
Mhm.
called. But what they I don't know how they work now because it's more than 15 years that I've talked with them. But at that time, or that I discussed this particular part, but at the time that they started out, as far as I remember, they started their morning in that company. So this is a kind of I think it's more a consultancy company, but they started them in the morning indeed with a kind of open space like, okay, what is all the work that we need to do and who will work
Mhm.
on what? So, really, like in an open space, might have seen it also as a kind of Kanban because these are the tasks that need to be done.
Yeah.
But in a very open way. Also, the part like who will do accountancy, who will send out the invoices, who will, I don't know, clean out the trash,
Uh-huh.
all the
Right.
kind of work that needed to be done in that company. And indeed, in the morning, they might decide, okay, I'm going to go to this client and work out. And probably if promises were already made, that was kind of predefined.
Mhm.
But still, they would discuss these kind of things I don't know if it's on a daily, on a weekly basis, but like,
Mhm.
how will we want to work out? No idea if they still work that way, but it was very much like you say, inspired again, like in open space and lots
Mhm.
of agile mindset things.
Yeah, it's
Like
that mindset, right? Yeah. I see a
so,
book behind you, Sandy Mamoli's book, Creating Great
yeah,
Teams.
exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
about
thinking
team
about that as well.
self-selection. Yeah, yeah. And that's part of it is like if you combine Heidi Sandy's book, and then Heidi Helfand has got a book on dynamic reteaming. So
Hmm.
there's lots of concepts out there, and if you combine those two with some other things in there, you've essentially got got fast. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
We,
that's and yeah, I would. Well, in that way, I think a lot of the things that we're doing is at the same time all the same and all different because it's mindset things based and like yeah, if you a lot this is why I'm not surprised that different kind of people come up with very similar kind of ways, similar and different, because it will all be a little bit different, but it's related, like you say, on the people. Let's collaborate and see what works. And somehow in companies we seem to have a hard time on focusing on what's the best way of doing it. Let's first all agree on the rules and then we'll start doing the work. And I'm like, yeah, but I've done a kind of reteaming exercise way before I read any of these books.
Mhm.
Um, that was basically what. How can I tell the short version? So basically, this is a large. It was officially called a team. I would call it a group of teams, but it consists out of four sub teams, and even then we're rather big. So 40, around 40 people. Or maybe 40 people, I don't know exact. But the message from an internal customer was, we don't want to work with this internal team. So one of the teams, teams, the names were by colors. So I think they were, we don't want to work with the yellow team. Okay, a little retro. What will we do with this? Because it's, yeah, if an internal customer says we don't want to work with that, that really is a strong message. Something is wrong in the way we're working. Um, did the retro, and there's two things that came out. One is like, okay, maybe we should go to three teams, and the other one, well, you know, Eve, your predecessor, he decided on which was the teams and whatever. So this is not going to work. Okay, okay, next part, I say, let's do a little workshop. And basically what I what I told them is like, walk around in the room and form three teams with, how do you think, you for yourself think it's okay? And the very first remark I got from people is, no, 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 we should first agree on all the rules. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, because my rule and your rule and this
Yeah,
rule, they
yeah,
will all be different. But if
yeah.
I'm okay with the team setup for my rules and you're okay with the team setup for your rules, that's fine. We don't need to
Mm-hmm.
even agree. And of course, we all know the company, so we know what this company needs. We know that if we have to all be delivering independent work, we should have all the different kind of roles. I shouldn't tell you which are the roles you need because you know the work. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't happen with people who don't know the work, but this is a team that had been there much longer than I was. I was only there for 2 weeks, I think, or 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
But this is really interesting that when you let people do that, it took a while. It took a long time, and I am not the one to go to the whole story, but it was hard for these people. But in the end, they choose a team. Let's call it topology. It has nothing to do with the
Mm-hmm.
book, but with the topologies of the
Yes.
three teams, how
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would work together.
Mm-hmm.
That worked fine. Was it
Mm-hmm.
the best? I don't know. Could I have created a better? No.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure I
right.
was not able to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah. And so that's what I call tapping into the collective intelligence of the room. And so that's what the fast meeting is we say, hey, if this is the work that needs doing, who wants to lead a team? Like you do, right? The fact you put your hand up, so great, great. What are you doing? That one there. Okay, who wants to work with Bob? Bob's over there. Okay, great. What's the next thing? This one. Who wants to lead that one? I will. All right. Who's working with Jane? Right. That's it. And we're tapping into the collective intelligence of who should be working on what and when, because that that changes with context and with as we found out new things. So and that's why fast enables fluid teaming, because things change, um, and as things change, teams should change. I mean, there's other reasons for. Here's some other examples of doing the right thing. There's nothing on the board that is that has my speciality on it, right? I'm a back end developer. I'll just pick something. There's no back end work to do. Well, I'd say, well, go join a team and learn something else, right? So try and become T-shaped, right? Learn multiple skills. Learn about front end development. Learn about product management. Learn how to do customer interviews. Like, go join another team. That is the right thing to do. And then, like, is it the right thing for me to go and switch teams right now? Well, if the current team is relying on you, that's not a good time to go and change teams, right? But and other reasons for changing, switching teams are, I've never. There's some people over there that I don't know so well. I would like to go there and get to know them better. Um, there is this guy called Quinn who is an amazing code crafter. I know I could learn a lot from working with him. I'm going to go to that team. So this is reasons why you would pick where you go to work on. Most often it's because you're drawn to a piece of work and you feel passionate about that, and or you've been working with. So this is what we found through the patterns. Most of the time, it was you found a set of people that you really liked working with, and they stuck together, and so they became semi-sticky teams. Um, but which gets back to your point of like, well, who should we, say who's got the skills, and you can try to play that game. But you remember when you go to, we're going to talk about kindergartens again. You go to a kindergarten and it's playtime. You go ding ding, and the kids come running out. And what do? Right? They form natural groups, and you find groups, and they go start playing, and the groups will change. Maybe they change when they change. And why do they change? They change because things change, right? And so as kids, we already know how to self-organize, but it was taken out of us at some point because you get to work and you get told what to do, right? Right? Well, inside the classroom, you get told who you're going to work with. Outside of the classroom, we know how to self-organize. It's a
And
natural
that and that's the
thing
interesting
for
in,
us.
in
Yeah.
kindergarten there is no meetings about who will play with who. I mean,
Right. Try and
you just
organize that.
yeah.
That's going to
And
work. Yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting because in school later on, if you have to do a, I don't know, play a certain thing, then we have to select other people.
Yeah.
Where actually, and at the moment that they go out at the lunch break, they will
Hmm.
self-select into teams just like that.
Just like that. Yes. You
There
don't
is
have to
no
control it.
selection
No.
exactly. Then that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Then we just say okay, but that, and I've seen it. Oh, this is very long time ago, and I
Hmm.
wasn't really participating a lot because I wasn't really liking to play football or anything. But might have watched, and there you sometimes see like okay, but somehow a kid has to go to do something else in school, and then someone else switches teams because otherwise it doesn't feel equal anymore.
Hmm.
And yeah, they feel like this is much more natural to do this,
Mm.
instead of no, we
Natural.
should win, and
Yeah.
then yeah,
Yeah.
that's a natural selection. I really like that. But
Yes. Yeah.
with, oh, wonderful. Yeah, I was looking forward partly to this conversation to learn more about fast and everything
Mm.
because many people have been talking a lot and being very enthusiastic about it. So I'm not
They
surprised
have.
that this, of course, comes up as your biggest achievement. And at
Mm.
the same time, you do it in a way that I learn a lot on how it's started out, I would say. So
Mm.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's
Glad to
move on
share.
to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
Personal agility tip. I do. Well, actually, what do you mean by personal agility?
Well, that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
That's one thing where I consciously decided to not answer that question
Oh, okay.
because
Okay.
I like how people interpret it differently, different kind of
You've,
people.
all
With now
right.
more than 150 people, it
Yeah.
goes in all kind of directions. That's exactly what I like about it. So
Yeah. That's a great question then. Okay. The ambiguity to it opens up interesting answers. I like that. So, all right. So my first response to this one is um, my my tip for agility is so my view of agile changed quite dramatically um, over the last few years, and it happened. I think when I probably read Marty Kagan was was the beginning of the change point. And so from Kagan, I ended up reading Melissa Perry, John Cutler, Jeff Gothelf, and I just got more and more intrigued with product management. And I realized that what I call modern product management, I think some of those names do as well, um, is where Agile should have gone. So I think um, Agile was born when it was born. The problem to solve that we had to solve, like let's go back in history. There's these they were men, right? And the challenge of that time was these software projects, right? That we kept failing at software projects, delivering on software projects. And they realized that, well, the management styles and techniques that we've got aren't suitable for software projects. And what was different about software projects, I think, is they're more complex than complicated. So they said, hey, there's a better way to do this with like iterative and incremental methods, and Scrum and XP were born. So it was quite a revolutionary change. But the problem to solve was delivering on software projects. And I think we solved it. Like, how many updates do you get on your phone every day, right? Like, hey, this this app, right? We know how to deliver software now. Problem solved.
Mm.
That's not to say every company is agile and is doing a great job about it, but in general, the patterns are there. I think the best thing that's come out of the whole agile movement is we've now got continuous delivery in DevOps, and we've learned a new mindset and some skills. So that's what came out of it. The problem was solved. What they didn't address, because they didn't know yet, is that, hey, just because you get good at delivering the right thing is another question. And so I think this is what I learned from modern product management, is the whole art and science to working out what a company should be doing, and or discovering that through, you mentioned this earlier, like through scientific methods and through data driven decision making. So A/B testing is a fantastic example of like a data driven decision, right? Hey, hey, I have a hypothesis that putting this button here will make more money. You can test that, and that's using the scientific method. When Agile Manifesto was born, I don't think A/B testing. Well, I certainly didn't hear about it until many years later. So there's a lot of tools that weren't used, that we have now, and I think so. My personal agility tip is go learn about modern product management, and making data driven decisions, because that's the core of everything. If I have to pick one book, I think a good starting book is Jeff Goethelf's book, Sense and Respond.
And we'll talk
From
about that later,
Yeah,
indeed. I
okay,
want to move back a little bit because what you said, well, indeed, the A/B testing, it might have existed already, but then more outside software, I would say. Like I guess they did that with advertising and with other kind
yeah,
of things.
hmm,
But indeed, the fact that we're able, well, websites, the fact that you could on the same website to a part of your audience show one thing and part to the other, yeah, it was very
hmm,
easy to test something
yeah,
in an, how would I say it, in the world before websites, when there were Windows applications or even mainframe applications, that would have been a lot harder
yeah,
to do these kind of things. Of course,
right.
our
So
our
things have
industry helped a
changed.
lot, and
Yeah,
because I do think, like for example, for A/B testing, we still need some kind of SaaS environment. If you do
yes, yeah.
work
You
on
can't do it
software, yeah,
right.
exactly.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
A/B testing requires a large user base, but it's a tool of that matches the scientific method of testing your hypothesis, and that's all it comes down to. I think that's where I got to with modern product management. Like, let's use another tool of a landing page test, right? In all my years of being a developer in agile teams, I never wrote a landing page test, but I'm like, wow, that would have been a great tool to have used, right? We didn't know. Like, we always thought that by and I'm an XP developer, right? I got to write quality code by developing this is highly tested code, and we got it into production really quick. And it's all about being done, right? And done was deployed into production. Whereas once you switch your mindset to this product management, it's in production because you're testing hypothesis. That's where the real work starts, right? Right? Have
for me,
you
this
have you
was
put Yeah.
For me, this was introduced by Eric Ries with his Lean Startup. I don't know where
Yes.
you
Lean
learned that,
startup.
but
Yes. Yep. Yep. Links, yes, definitely. Eric Ries, and that was kind of that thread got continued. I think my turning point was Kagan. What was his first book? Inspired. I was very inspired by his first book. And you know what inspired me about his first book was he said, your best source of ideas quite often is the software engineers. So I'm a software engineer, as I mentioned before, and no one ever asked me my opinion. I was, it was always taught that the product owner is the king of everything that we do, and Kagan's like, no, you tap your engineers. They're one of your best sources for inspiration and ideas. I'm like, yes. Why aren't you listening to Kagan? Like, I'm not just a code monkey. I'm actually a brain, right? And developers love solving problems, right? Code is just a problem. It's like a puzzle. But as soon as you can point us to other problems too, like finding product market fit. It's just another problem, right? And once you understand the scientific method of like, well, what ideas do we have? And now you're asking everyone, you're asking the engineers, hey, what ideas do you have to solve this product market fit? They might be stupid ideas, but they're ideas, and they're only stupid if they fail, right? So once so I was very, that's what kind of converted me over. I'm like, yeah, like we need to tap into the collective wisdom more than we have been. Like in the models that we were given by the old agile world, I think they were the best we could do at the time with what we know. But what we know now, like based on Kagan, Perry, Cutler, Gotel, is a lot more. And yeah, it's really changed the way that I think about agility. Um, yeah.
I really like that, and indeed, I recognize a lot of the things that you're saying. Like programmers, yeah, use our brains. This is why I'm a big fan that the as much as possible, team members use the product that they're developing. Because if
Mm,
you're using it not just as a tester, but really using it in your day-to-day life, you will learn about the problems that your customers are having, and you will, well, first of all, find a lot of bugs, but not
right.
just that, you will
Yeah.
find a lot of what I would call logical bugs, or implementation bugs, and yeah, you will indeed, we will use our brains because developers are really good at doing that. So I
Hmm.
really like that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
like you
also,
say, it's been solved before by so many people. It's now
yes.
we have to
Yes.
implement this part.
Yeah. And to get there's evidence out there now of like customer empathy, right? You will get a better product and higher quality product directly correlated with the engineer's empathy to the customer. And how do you get empathy to the customer? You don't hide them behind a product owner. You invite them in to listen to the customer interviews, right? You invite them in, so they're there. And this is what I love about Torres. There's the other name, Teresa Torres. She talks about the product trio. That anytime you're doing a customer interview, you always have an engineer there, and that's a fantastic opportunity to rotate engineers through that. And fast is a great way for fluid teaming, right? So I think it's a great marriage there. I just published a blog on that of fluid teaming and product trios of enabling engineers to get that direct empathy with the customer because they're listening to actual and participating in customer interviews, right? So they're hearing the pain of the customer and they're going, oh, that's why we're doing this, right? And rather than like, here's a story, go do it. And right, and that, a story says so there's some relationship to the empathy or the pain, but experiencing it firsthand is very different. And this is modern. This is my personal agility tips, right? Go to modern product management and start doing that. Learn
I
about
really
product
like that.
trios, rotate your engineers through that product trio, make everything a hypothesis, and treat your own process treat. Who says this one? I think it was Jeff Gothelf. Yeah, he says treat your process the same way you treat a product. Say, because your product is just a hypothesis, and you're continually testing your hypothesis in the market. Like, hey, if I do this, does it sell more? If I do this, do we retain more customers? If we do this, you know, blah blah blah. And your process is the same, right? Well, if we introduce fluid teaming, does it make a difference? So treat it like our hypothesis, and we'll say, well, here's the experiment. If it worked, then we should see these things. All right. If it doesn't work, we should see that. But we never experiment on our own processes. And I love fast, like as I said. But I would say, like, don't get married to it either. But like, what I'd love even more than fast is teams owning their own their own process, right? And fast is a great one to pick off the shelf and start with, but it's not. It don't stay there. And this is very different to Scrum, which says if you're not doing this, you're not doing Scrum. Whereas I don't want that with fast. I want fast to go, hey, pick this up, get some ideas from it, and
That
then go
yeah,
where you need to go. You know?
I always found that very interesting with Scrum, because if you do the original version of Scrum, you would end up not doing Scrum by design, because you
Yes.
do
Right.
retrospective, you change.
Yes.
But if you
Yeah.
actually do this, then people are stopping. Then we have the Scrum
Yeah.
police coming by and
Yeah.
say,
They're going. You're
"You're
not
not
doing
doing Scrum."
Scrum. Yeah.
Well, actually, I started doing, because
Yeah, we
yeah,
did an
that
experiment which went against it, but we found out that it worked for us. So that's why we're doing it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so for me, the people who have most experience with Scrum, especially from the beginning, actually doing that, do exactly what you say with Fast. It's
Mm,
like, okay, you do some experiments, you try something, and you change something. And if you, I don't know who said it recently, but well, probably a lot of people. But like, if you keep working the same way as you worked 6 months ago, you haven't learned anything. And we can say
right.
the same thing about code and without everything. If you
Yeah.
if you look at your code that you wrote 6 months ago and you're not horrified about the code, then you haven't learned better
Yeah.
programming. So you
Right.
haven't evolved. And if it's only 6 months, it's probably still okay. If it's 5 years ago, then probably there's a bigger problem. But it's the
Hmm.
same thing for our processes. We should keep moving, because our company and most companies are not the same in a year or 2 years or 5 years from now. So that's
Right.
yeah, that's
There's another plug for a book is Urian Kama. He's just published a book called Unblock, which I really like. But I read his a previous book of his, which is Formula X. So he's obviously very much into Formula One. But what I got from reading that his first book is in Formula One, every
Formula
talk
X,
about
you mean?
yeah,
Oh yeah, he
Formula X
talks
is
in
his
Formula
book.
X. He
Yes,
talk about the Formula One. Yeah,
it's
sorry,
Formula
right,
One.
right.
Yeah, yeah. But in Formula One, it's all about continuous improvement, right?
Exactly.
That every they just every like there's this continuous like retrospective, particularly after a race, and like if you think from a layman's point of view, you're like, what's a race? What are you going to retrospect on? How can we win the next race better? But there's so many changes. Like once you get committed to continuous improvement, every race is another experiment. Like they're trying out new technologies, new methods, new techniques. Hey, what happened here? What happened there? And that's what we should be doing with our process. Like treating it. I've got a blog waiting to come out called retrospect like you mean it, because it's it's that same idea of Formula One. Like we're here to win the race, and then right, and for some teams it's like, well, to make the steering better. Some teams it's to make better tires. Some it's to make better communication. Some it's this, but all of them had the same objective they're moving towards. Like we're gonna win more races. Yeah.
And it, well, the good thing for them is that they all get the same feedback, and the very quickly feedback. You either win or you
Yes.
lose. I mean,
Right.
it's very clear also when you while you're driving, because that's one thing I've
Even while you're
I've
driving. Yeah.
learned from that book, is that there is so much data going, because basically I heard some people recently saying how much is still important about the driver and everything else. Well, you still have to drive, but there's so much regulated by the computers and so much data there.
Hmm.
But it's so much data driven,
Yes. Yeah.
And it's indeed, it is, yeah, this is fast feedback at an
Yep.
incredibly speed. I mean,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
cannot get faster feedback, and I really like that. I Yeah, when I was younger, I know some musicians who really, professional musicians, and I was amazed that, and if I look back, the best bands, they were, after the gig, they were still giving feedback to each other. This was good, that was good,
Hmm.
and this was like, and yeah, they want to improve, and of course they could just enjoy and go partying, but
Yeah.
at least, and some of them still did, but it's still after that initial concert, immediately
Hmm.
they give some feedback. That wasn't good. Oh, we tried something different and it worked, or we
Hmm.
tried something and it didn't work, and that's the feedback. Of course, the feedback loop is smaller, is
Yeah.
larger, sorry, because you give feedback and you have to try it the next gig.
Hmm.
While in these Formula One races, it's there might be feedback going to the driver immediately. Oh, if you use this maneuver, whatever, for the next corner, then you will be able to take over that other driver, because we've seen that whatever data they have. Um, but that's indeed very much, the feedback loops at a different kind of level. I
Yeah.
love this
Yeah.
book as
Yeah.
well, indeed. Um,
It's a
let's
good
move
book.
to that next question.
Okay.
What have you learned about remote working?
I have I've learned that I hate it. There we go. And
That's fair.
and I love it. So
Mm,
I don't think it's the nirvana that we thought it would be in uh, in terms of effectiveness and efficiencies. So there's lots of people out there that are publishing studies saying it works, but I think I have a hunch that a lot of them are. I'm in a minority in that I think most people want it to work because, and this is why I have a love hate with it, because I love working from home. Because I don't know if you see me sometimes, I turn around here, let's open this door. My dogs go in and out. I can see my dogs. I can do my laundry while I'm working. I'm like, oh, it's finished. I'll quickly drop it in and out. Um, so I don't have a commute. I get to eat healthy. Yada yada. There's so many reasons that why I work from home is great. Um, what do I'm what don't I like about it? I don't think anything can beat face-to-face conversation ever for creating relationships, for understanding, for high bandwidth communication. Um, I think I really miss side conversations and the synchronicity that can happen through that is lost. I think so. There's lots of things that I don't like, and there's things I do like. So it's not it's not black and white. It's very much a gray thing. Yeah, and what have I learned? I think it works. It works better than I thought it could. And I wonder if we're going to rediscover the power of co-location and face-to-face communication. And one day there's going to be some startup and they go, hey, that was our secret sauce that we all co-located and we did face-to-face, and look how quickly we were able to move and innovate and yada, yada, yada. So cycles and yeah, that's what I've learned. Yeah.
yeah, I find it interesting because indeed there's definitely advantages that you can do certain things.
Hmm.
Um, the I wonder if some of the disadvantages that you talked about, is that because it's never going to work, or is it because we haven't found a way to do that in a remote setting?
Um, yeah, and so I get asked that a lot when um, and it's a really good question because we can say, all right, what have we lost through remote settings? So let's pick one. Let's say synchronicity. And I say, yeah, because how many? And here's a fantastic story of synchronicity. Because a lot of innovation happens by accident, right? And so to create accidental innovation, is similar to synchronicity is you have to have the right setup for it. So, when Steve Jobs created the new Apple offices, he purposefully constructed it so random people would bump into each other, right? So that you would hear conversations as you walk down stairways or elevators and stuff. He did that on purpose because he understood that can result in more innovation, etc. I think the greatest story of that comes from Google, where I mean their prime product is is Google Ads, and they couldn't get that right for the longest time. And one of the founders, I can't remember which one of them, ends up putting a sign up in the canteen area of saying, "We suck at doing this, and here's why." And he stuck that up there. So one of the engineers saw that and went, "I think I know now how to fix that." Went and did it at home, was tinkering around. And now this engineer was not on the team that was there to do at Google AdWords. He was on a totally different team. But because he saw that and that was in his mind, he goes, "Oh, I think based on the stuff that I'm doing over here with this thing, if we use this over here, then that could solve it." Went and tinkered away, came back. Now that is their cash cow. Would that have happened if they had not been co-located and that synchronicity and the sticker? So those kind of events, right, happen because of that. So then you say, well, is there a way to create that? And people are like, yeah, we've come up with this thing called Donut, where you get randomly started a conversation with someone in the organization.
Right.
We do it every Thursday afternoon. I'm like, it's a nice try, and that's good. Um, but like, how you can't plan for synchronicity? Well, the way to plan for synchronicity is to make people in the same, is to make chaos, right? And I'm writing the book for Fast now. I'm thinking the title might be Embracing Chaos, because it's through chaos that we find innovation. It's through chaos that we find natural order and stuff. So how do you create chaos on purpose without it destroying? Because chaos can be destructive as well. How do you create enough chaos in your organization to move it to the next level and to find new things and innovation, etc. And in a remote environment, distributed environment, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just not thinking about the problem hard enough, or I'm copping out. But
Well, the reason I'm asking is that I think we've been working in the office, let's say more or less since after the Second World War. Then a lot of people started working in what we call information, what is it, knowledge
the
world.
knowledge work, yeah.
And that's been going on for what, like 60 years or something like that,
Yeah.
and or 70 years, and now we I don't think we can expect that in just 1 or 2 years we solve that to do the same thing in the thing, because something like what Steve Jobs came up with, the design of the office, was on purpose but was based on a lot of research and a lot of other books that talked about that the fact that we need to work in this kind of way, and he took action on that. I do remember, and I don't know how true that story was, but I do remember a story about Microsoft where they said when they were on campus, like this is a story that at least is 20 years old or something like that, that they said we have all these mini cafeterias in every office, like on every floor
Yes.
there is some kind of cafeteria. And I heard the story that they were putting what is it, so televisions, and basically you were able to click on, so you had a camera, you had a television where you saw, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 whatever video feeds from another cafeteria in another building. And
Yeah.
then you could see, oh, Jeff is in that other cafeteria on that other day. I can click on it and I can start talking to Jeff, even though we're not in the same building at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it was also some kind of happily accident, because you need to both to go at the same time to go into
to
that
eat.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they try to, I don't know if that's a real story, because the
Mm,
more I think about it, the more I think now the technology would be there. I don't know if that technology existed for these kind of things 20 years ago.
yeah.
But that's the kind of thing where it was for a physical world, but it,
Hmm.
yeah, there could be some kind of interaction
Mm,
in a kind of way.
yeah.
I have a love hate relationship with the donut on Slack as well, because indeed
Mm,
it's like it's then scheduled just like another meeting in my
yes.
calendar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the
Right.
same thing, it does force me to talk to people in other. Typically,
Hmm.
I reject everybody from my own department, but I do talk with the people from other departments, because
Mm,
that these are the ones I typically don't talk enough about, or
yeah.
talk enough with them. So that part I like. Um, so yeah, it's for me it's an interesting challenge. Where will we go with remote? Like you say, there is a lot of advantages. There's a lot of disadvantages, and I love the fact that you say there is that balance thing. Will go back and forth a couple of times again.
Mm,
I'm pretty sure,
yeah.
and we will always have people who are in favor of one or the other. And just like with many things, I don't think there is a
Hmm.
one true answer. For some people this might work, for others something else, and for parts of our life as well.
Mm.
If you're a young parent, then maybe more yeah, ways of things in doing that might be better. Let's move to that next question, and you already talked a little bit about it. What's a book that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sense and Respond by Jeff Gothelf, which I mentioned earlier, because I think of the modern product management gurus out there. Well, I think it's the most easiest to consume, and a good starting spot along that journey. Yeah.
And so in a sense you made already a big publicity for it earlier on with everything you said earlier on. Is there anything you haven't said about the book that you think really is a main reason for people to read it,
To
if they
read. No, I probably already covered it.
yeah, I
It's
had the
the
feeling that we already
yeah,
kind of covered that answer indeed.
yeah.
Well, let's move on to that next question. It's
Okay.
perfectly fine. That's a little bit also the serendipity of how we things are doing, and that's actually for me. This is with conversations that go in all these kind of directions. For me, always the question I look most forward to. What's a question that I didn't ask you yet, but that you think I should also ask you?
Hmm. Well, I'm going to use that as a bit of a marketing thing. This is a well, why should an organization look at fast? Um, and I would say because the business world is facing an ever increasing rate of change, of disruption. And so responsiveness, resilience, and innovation are core competencies now that every organization needs to compete or to stay competitive. And fast is an enabler for those. And so, remember I said that there's two aspects of the fast. One is it makes the world a better place. Which is why I love it. But it has to solve business problems. And so the business problems it really shines at and solves are responsiveness, resilience, and innovation. And in the world of disruption that we're in now, right? Like here's AI, right? Um, here's COVID, here's this, here we're now remote with this. Fast is really good at responding to change and finding a state of balance very quickly and enabling innovation. Because we said, we're talking about one of the challenges of being distributed is I think there is an impact on innovation. Now with fast and by bringing people together into collective and fluid teaming, we're opening up more to innovation. So we're actually we're using chaos on purpose. Every time you go to an open space event, and when they say go, you're opening the room up to chaos. You're seeing a bunch of people running in the middle of the room. bunch of people racing towards a microphone saying, I'm doing this. And you're going, what's happening? What's this? What's this? It's a chaotic event. It's supposed to be a chaotic event because once you start reading about chaos theory and the science of chaos, chaos leads to natural order. And so that's what we're doing at an open space event. We're trying to find what's the natural order of these people in this room. What is the natural order of events, of things we should talk about, on who should be on which event? And we use chaos to discover that. And so fast does the exact same thing. We use chaos to discover what should we be doing right now. And chaos is also where innovation happens. So it opens up the possibility to way more innovation, people bumping into each other that wouldn't have, right? If you got static teams, right? I'm stuck in this team. I might like the team, I might not, but hey, if it turns out when I got to mob program with that guy over there, oh, our ideas clashed and or merged, and we went, why don't we do this? That's a great idea. Let's take that, test that out with a customer, with a landing page, with an A/B test, right? So that friction, of people rubbing up against people, is where innovation comes from.
I really like that. I really like that. And indeed, I'm glad that you mentioned the chaos, because the chaos indeed is especially in I would say startup world or scale up world,
Yes.
that's definitely is something that is needed.
Yeah.
Um, do you think there are people for who that chaos doesn't work? I mean, we live
Yes.
in a world, we've seen in COVID that there are some people that really look for much more stability and other kind of
Yes.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, do you have a solution for that, or how do you deal with that?
So we are a lot of our businesses and our business practices and management practices are still rooted from the industrial age, from Taylorism, etc. And that mindset is rooted in a complicated worldview, right, where everything is deterministic and can be decomposed and recomposed, right? And that's and some problems are complicated, and that's fine. Which is why I say there's nothing wrong with waterfall. If you've got a complicated problem to solve, go use waterfall. It works just fine, right? But if you've got a complex problem to solve, i.e., most software projects are in the complex spaces, which is why Agile was born, right? So Agile is already bumping up into that more complex space. And so, a lot of agilists,
When I
we
want to wait, I want to
go on.
stop you a little bit, because you've done it before, and I didn't interrupt you at that moment. But you talk about complex and complicated.
Complicated, yeah.
Is that you referring to the, for example, the Kneffin way of thinking, or is it coming from somewhere else to see that distinction for you?
I think Cynefin is a tool which is
Mm-hmm.
helpful to understand that distinction. I think there's other authors that talk about it better than him, but he says very similar. Of yeah, is and that's a really core concept to get for people to understand. I know it was for me. There's this hump you got to get over of like complex versus complicated, and more. But once you get over the hump, it opens your eyes up to a whole new world. And then once you understand complex, how chaos is kind of in that spectrum as well. It is a spectrum. There's no kind of clear line of where complex goes into chaos. But you understand how you get to recognize, oh, this is a complex issue. That's a complicated issue. And you need to, as a manager or any kind of business, you need to understand that, because how you approach it is different for either. If you're in the complex space, you need to do multiple probes. And this is where, finding product market fit is a fantastic example of a complex problem, right? Because is you keep trying different things. Like the whole startup world way is trying to find that's why most of them fail, because we're doing multiple probes of like, hey, maybe this will work, maybe this will work, maybe this will work, right? And that's what happens in the complex space. And that's the only way it can happen, which is why you never know which startup is the one that's going to win, that's going to work, because only through actual experimentation and probing is how you find out. But not everyone is, maybe because, as you get older, your mind doesn't change as easily, and so a lot of us went through MBAs and business school that we were never taught this stuff, right? I'm gray hair, right? And stuff that I never knew about. So I think a lot of us are still stuck in thinking of the world as complicated and businesses as complicated, and so trying to solve businesses in complicated ways when complex problems in complicated ways um, doesn't work. So it's not ready. It's not fast. Is not ready for everyone. I think you need to understand complexity and know and love it, and or to know that complexity has a lot of power to it, and as does chaos. Uh, and so that's the thing that's really hindering fast, because there's some level of unintuitiveness to it. You're like, that couldn't possibly work, but then whoever knew that order comes out of chaos, right? That's totally unintuitive, but it's truth, and it's fact, and it's science, and it's been proven now. So yeah, that's the one thing that's kind of holding it back, or that's not ready for. And we just need to wait for more people to take us past the tipping point of younger minds, maybe, or education or whatever.
I really like that, and thank you for adding that extra thing, because indeed, understanding that difference between complexity and yeah, and complicated things, that is so crucial in almost everything we do
Mm.
in the agile world. I do think most software is in the complex space. Okay, if you have to redo something that's been written before, and you would do the exact same thing. But even in another technology, you will still have discover other things, and it will be much more complex than you think. It might be look much more complicated, but I'm not sure it is. But whoever does that, whoever writes software that is exactly the same, most of the things
Hmm.
that we're doing is reinventing a world and recreating something. Even if we try to create the same thing, we still want it to be better adapted to this world. And
Hmm.
there is your complexity again, I would
Yeah.
say. So thank you for adding that thing. Okay, we're already to that very last question. Who do you think I should invite next?
Well, there's the author of the book I mentioned, Jeff
Mhm.
Goethelf. Do you want some other ideas, or
I think you
come with you?
already mentioned one
I've
person
mentioned
that
loads of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
you mentioned one person that you also wanted to invite, but has been here on the show as well. 147, if I remember correctly, was Woody Zool.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's been talking here
Yeah.
also about,
Hmm.
among other things, 1,000 ways to do something, which is very similar to a lot of what you've been talking in a way.
Hmm.
And you mentioned mobbing already. You mentioned the workshop you did with him. You mentioned actually a lot of people from the yeah, Melissa is one other person that you mentioned, I think.
Melissa
uh,
Perry. Yeah.
that we've been trying to find the right moment to come on the show, because agenda wise it's not that easy, but
Yeah. Okay.
looking into that already. So yeah, I think with that you've mentioned already a couple of people who I really hope that we can have.
Yeah.
And yeah, indeed, Jeff is one of the people that for me was on my radar. For me,
Mm.
waiting to invite, because that's a little bit part on how this goes. I have a
Mm.
huge list now already, almost 800 people. But I'm just always waiting for whoever wants to invite the next person. So I'm really,
Hmm.
really looking forward to be able to invite Jeff, I would say. So
Okay.
the thing that left me is thanking you for your time. It was a little bit challenging in the beginning, so I was much more stressed than I'm used to, and I couldn't use all the my technology the way I'm using it or typically using it. But yeah, it was such a nice conversation. I feel really relaxed at that end. So thank you very much for your time.
Good. Good.
And
When
maybe one last side question: what's the best way for people to reach out to you if people want to connect with you?
um, well, you can go to the website fastagile.io. I think there's some links there how to get to me, but also LinkedIn. I'm better at at LinkedIn. Yeah, find me there and send me a
This
message.
should be the message indeed on LinkedIn.
Yeah, there you
The
go. Yeah,
the address. Okay, and indeed I will add fast the website to the show notes as well. So
awesome.
well, thank you very much for your time. I wish
Thank you.
you a wonderful rest of your day. In here, it's already evening. It's very dark by now. But yeah, I really had a wonderful time. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you for
Bye.
watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.